On this episode of Scammer Stories, Heather Rovet thought she'd found love when a charming handyman named Jace walked into her life. Instead, she uncovered a web of lies tied to one of Canada's most notorious romance scammers. Heather's story is so wild that it includes mishandled police investigations and even a night when the scumbag broke into her house while she was home. Her story is so unbelievable that it became a documentary on Prime Video. Heather shares how the relationship slowly unraveled, the emotional manipulation, and the shocking moment she realized the man she loved wasn't who he claimed to be. She also opens up about the aftermath and what it took to rebuild her life after betrayal, and she did rebuild. Her story shows that even a woman with everything can be duped. She was beautiful, had a successful career as a realtor and interior decorator, and had a loving upbringing. That's where we'll start this story. Quick note, there are curse words in this episode. Not a good one to listen to with the family in the car.
I often say I grew up pretty much wanting for nothing, very well taken care of, and had lots of incredible experiences.
Her parents were the perfect role models.
My mom was a neuroscientist, child psychologist. She worked at the Hospital for Sick Children here in Toronto, which is world famous. And my dad was a lawyer who specialized primarily in labor and employment law.
Okay, so before this all started, you were actually involved in a scam from a financial planner, right?
Yeah. So that guy, I met him, I think, in 2016, and he posed as a financial planner, and he had business cards and a website, and he was young and smooth talking, and we started meeting, and I invested a bit and then, a bit more. And I would meet with him quarterly, and he would show me how my money was doing. It was pretty much apparently all in the S&P 500. And I was like, this is great. And when I sold one property, I handed over a huge check to him. It was always under the understanding that when I want, it's my money. When I want it, I can get it back. And so when I started doing a renovation on my condo and I was like, okay, I need the money, he literally went on the run. And it turned out it wasn't just me. He had scammed. And to this day, I don't know if he was legitimate. I mean, he wasn't a registered financial trader. I learned that the hard way.
She was fresh off a scam that cost her $127,000, but that was nothing compared to what was ahead.
When I met Jace, probably 8 months after all that went down, I genuinely believed it was the universe's way of balancing the scales. And I'm like, oh my God, I met the man of my dreams.
Yeah, I deserve this. I just went through this horrible experience and now I deserve love and happiness. Yeah.
Yeah. That very first day I met Jace when he came to the condo to fix the cabinetry from my renovation and then helped with the towel bars. When we went out for lunch that afternoon, I told him about a financial scam because I'm a genuine open person and I wasn't embarrassed about it. I was just more still upset about it, but I'd been working really hard.
You were recovering from this scam and you were renovating your condo and this good looking guy shows up at your door to put up a towel rod.
So Jace was working at the time for the company that I had used to do all the cabinetry work in the renovation. So all the kitchen cupboards and the bathroom vanities. And so it was a Monday morning in July. I got this text message from Jace from the kitchen cabinet company. So he came over to fix what they needed done. And I had a few other personal things like towel bars and hooks and toilet paper holders that were not part of the renovation from that company. But I figured, I've got this guy. I know how to use a drill. Why not ask him? And he was sitting on the toilet seat putting up the towel bar and I was leaning in the shower door jamb and just talking. And, he just seemed like an interesting guy. And that's when I said, what are you doing now? And he said, well, I was going to go get some lunch. I'm like, lunch, great. And I said, why don't I take you out as a thank you for doing this?
They went to lunch and she told him the story about her scam. Looking back now, she knows it was a light bulb moment for him. Once you've been scammed, scumbags see blood.
And it was over that lunch that I confided into him about Simon and the scam and the money and just how stressful he'd been trying to get through this renovation.
Had he been scamming at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The truth was disturbing, but she didn't learn that until later.
Based on all the stories that unraveled once I learned the truth, early 2012, Jace was arrested. There was a warrant out for his arrest at the end of 2011. He was arrested in early 2012. And by April of 2012, he did a plea deal and was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for having scammed when he was Jason Porter, having done all kinds of crimes, like stealing, defrauding, all this stuff. And he was sent away. So probably after around 18 months in 2014, he's released. And while he was in prison, I guess he had some time to think and come up with a new persona. So Jason Porter came out of jail and started going by Jace Parati. And he met a woman very quickly online on Match and, wooed her and got her pregnant. And I think he realized this is a great gig. Like I can, make this woman think I'm going to be the best partner, best dad, have a whole life. And then his job while he was with her, I actually talked to more women who were with him during that period of time, so from like 2014 to about 2018, late 2017, early 2018. By the time I met him in July of 2018, he was still up to no good. That's what he does. In 2019, before Jake started his Oracle job, he had a little bit of time. So he offered, out of the kindness of his heart, he helped my parents do like a tiny little renovation at the farm. So he was spending time there without me, with just my parents.
Heather thinks his scamming slowed down during the pandemic because people weren't meeting in person. So that's when he started stealing her mother's Tiffany jewelry.
So I guess when my parents went out, he started exploring and he found the lockbox. He must have realized it needs a key. Knowing my mom's behavior, he found the key hidden in her underwear drawer, which my mom thinks to this day, she's like, ew, it grosses me out to think he went through my underwear.
His sticky fingers didn't just stick to her mother's underwear drawer. He saw dollar signs everywhere.
It's not like he did this all at once. He would probably just take one thing and sell it. And then he would take another thing and sell it. So by the time she eventually went through her box and saw that all those little Tiffany bags and jewelry boxes were empty, for heart's sake, she was like, oh my God, it's so much worse than she thought it was. And on top of it, he also stole some cash. He stole some expensive tools from my dad. He stole my mom's Louis Vuitton luggage. Again, they're not traveling in COVID. So she, her luggage is in a totally different part of the house. That why would you go looking for luggage if you're not traveling? So when she actually went to go travel, she was like, oh shit, he stole that too.
What was the turning point?
We were at our 3-year anniversary mark and I had still yet to meet his son. Started being like every week, I was like, when are you going back to family court? Like, when is this going to be settled with your ex? Because I want to meet your son. I have a bedroom for him. I want to be part of his life. Like, I want to come to the BMX races and meet this kid and see him. I think in Jason's mind.
Heather thinks she had a shelf life on running this scam and he needed to get out.
He could only keep the lies up for so long. And I had also at one point questioned him about why he was spending so much of the company money on everything. Like my company that I bought for us to grow together, he literally lived off that company like it was an ATM. And he was even at one point, I found out, paying some child support from my business. During COVID, I sold the Toronto condo and we moved to Aurora, which is about 45 minutes north of Toronto. And for the most part, Aurora is quite suburban, but we were living in this part that's more rural. We rented I rented because he didn't pay any money. And that was another thing. I rented this house that was on 5 acres of property. So it was really private. And coming from the city and having always been going to my family farm, I really liked the outdoor space and just the quietness. And because everything was locked down, it didn't really matter. But the summer of 2021, I'm a city girl at heart. Like I'm missing going out. I'm missing interaction with people. And I just felt so isolated. And so I asked him this one weekend, I was just like, about plans for the following weekend. My cousins were having a pool party barbecue. I was like, hey, when do you think you'll be finished with your son next weekend so I can let my cousins know what time we'll be there? And he could not give me a straight answer. And I finally just lost my patience. I was like, you know what, Jay, fine. You do your family. referring to his ex and the son, and I'll do mine. And it wasn't really a hurtful comment, but he used that to completely gaslight me, which led to a huge fight the next day.
Looking back, Heather realizes that this was part of his narcissistic control. They tend to isolate their victims. Things were about to get really weird.
Which led to him needing space, which led to him not coming home, claiming he was sleeping at the office, which lasted a good month. And I just couldn't understand what was going on. And he just kept blaming me, saying he needed space. He hasn't been this upset since his mother died. How dare I say that to him? Like one day he came by the house to get some more clothes. He's like, I wouldn't be this upset with you, Heather, if I'd walked in and caught you fucking somebody in our bed. And I was like, holy fuck. Wow, that's hurtful.
This entire time, Heather had been confused and hurt. He'd already moved on to his next target.
Unbeknownst to me, that's when he had met somebody else and had moved in with her, knowing her for 2 weeks. None of it was making sense. And I was crying myself to sleep every night. And I didn't know what to do. Like I was in this weird position where I'm like, I'm living in this big house by myself, completely cut off from the world, trying to build a business. The love of my life is claiming he needs space. And there was part of me that just kept holding out for hope that this is all going to turn around. And then we'd actually done 2 sessions of couples counseling. And the therapist was like, if you work with me, like, I'm sure I can get you back on track. And I was optimistic, but he kept not wanting to engage me. Like, I'd be like, our therapist said we should do something. And you're like, still like not sleeping here. You're not coming home. Like, I just don't understand. He then missed our 3rd appointment, claiming that he had a really bad migraine and was still down in the city. But while I was in therapy, I had installed a security system, and it's the kind that tells you whenever a door opens or closes or a window opens or closes. So while I was at therapy, the fucker went home. And then it must have been like the next day, I was on my computer on a new website, and it asked me if I wanted to save the password, because Jace used to often use my laptop simultaneously to sitting at the desktop. And we had different users on the desktop. And so I figured out his password, and I went to the computer and typed it in. And then that was the Friday of Labor Day weekend, September, I guess, like 7th or 8th in 2021.
What was his password?
And I got into
I don't know why I want to know, but
his password was GoRack 1019. And GoRack, I guess, is a character from Gorak. It's a character, I think, from Star Trek. Like, I'd ask him, what's your password? He'd be like, Gorak. I'm like, okay. But I'd go and put it in, and it would never work. And then when I got into that part of Chrome that shows you all your history and your saved passwords, I was like, oh, so that's his password. GoRack 1019. Boom, I put it in, and now I'm in his half of the desktop computer, like his user. At the bottom, like the Gmail's already open. Oh, you're a match. You're a match. You've been matched. So-and-so sent you a message. So-and-so sent you a kiss. You're a match. You're a match. You're a match. I'm like, what the fuck? And so I started clicking on those, which took me directly to one online dating platform. I think it was either Badoo or Zeus, which I'd never even heard of. And when I got into the dating app, there were hundreds of women he was chatting to. And it went back our entire history.
On top of the dating site messages were messages from an online marketplace, including a Tiffany necklace and bracelets for sale. That's when Heather's world truly came crashing down all at once.
That's my mom. Oh, and I felt just sick to my stomach, obviously shock and complete disbelief. And my initial reaction was I called him, but he didn't answer. But I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, no. This guy's dangerous and bad and is not who he says he is. And that's when I started going down the rabbit holes I did and access more and more. Like I basically stayed up all night just like trying to figure out who this guy was. Quite frankly, I was terrified. In my house in Aurora, if I went out in the driveway and screamed as loud as I could, no one would hear me because each neighbor is 5 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres. They wouldn't hear me, and our house was set so far back from the road. So I was scared.
He eventually called back. She decided to play it cool, not tip him off that anything was wrong. That gave her more time to get to the bottom of what was really going on.
So as soon as we got off the phone call, I was like logged out of the emails. One of the dating platforms was like, sorry to see you go.
Jace told her he was coming home.
I used to think that the tone of my voice had given me away, but what I realized is he is very savvy, and he probably logged into something and it said you were last on at, and gave a time. So he probably figured out I was somehow onto him. But I had gotten enough screenshots. I got like hundreds of them. And he said, how about Sunday night I come over for dinner and we talk? I'm like, great. It's the long weekend. I'll be here. And then I heard crickets in the background. I was like, where are you?
Buddy, you literally heard crickets. When you said crickets, I thought,
yeah,
it was quiet, but no, you heard crickets.
No, like real crickets. And so he said, I'm in the city. I'm at the office. We're unloading the truck. I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I've lived in Toronto my whole life. Like, I don't remember hearing crickets like that. So we hung up. And then as soon as we hung up, within minutes, I was logged out of the emails and he was off the dating app. He knew I knew. Then it just, everything went like upside down and crazy from that point on. The next morning, on Saturday morning, after I finally fell asleep and my friend Kristen had come up to the house to be with me so I wasn't alone, I called my sister. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, just get here now. So her and her boyfriend came over and I told them everything. And I'm like, this guy's bad news. Like, his real name is Jason Porter. I found all these articles. He's been to prison. He's like stolen from people. So we're all just kind of digesting this. And Ken's like, my sister's boyfriend. She's Jen. He's Ken. You've got to call the police. So I called 911 and they sent over some officers and I told them everything I discovered. I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, oh, I just found a felon. Like, I can show you that this guy who's been to prison, he's still being a bad guy. And they're like, so what? Like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, they're like, it's your boyfriend and you gave him money. There's no crime here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a domestic situation. Well, they actually said, has he hurt you? And I was like, physically? And they're like, yeah. And I'm thinking, and in my mind, I'm actually thinking of all those tickling videos that you see in the documentary. I'm like, well, he used to hurt me when he tickled me, but like, I don't think it was on purpose. Like, I didn't, and that's what I was thinking in my mind. So I was like, well, no, not on purpose. They basically said, well, there's nothing we can do. Your mom can go to her local police. It's not a crime to online date, but if he's stealing from these women, it's up to them to report it. So I was like, well, can I get a restraining order? Like, I'm terrified. I don't want him coming back here. They're like, sorry, ma'am. I was like, well, I'm going to change the locks then at least. And they're like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. He's on your lease. I'm like, but is he on my lease? Because he went from Jason Porter to legally changing his name to Jace Peretti. But on our lease, I've known him for 3+ years as Jace Peretti, totally different spelling. So I said to my sister, you have to tell mom about her stuff. Like, I was just so sad. My sister called my parents and told them what was going on. And my mom got in her car and drove over an hour to come see me. And I was lying in bed, just dead to the world, basically. And she crawled in and I just bawled. And I was like, I am so, so sorry.
Meanwhile, Heather's dad sends Jace a text message after the recommendation by police because Jace was driving her dad's car under the agreement that he would purchase the vehicle.
Which led to Jace then calling and texting me saying, like, what the hell's going on? I'll be home in 20 minutes.
Heather was running as fast as she could to make sure the doors were locked and the deadbolt secured. The day before, she went ahead and changed the locks, even after police told her not to.
Kristen was still at the house with me, and it was just the two of us, and we called 911. And
you hid, right? And you could hear him walking in?
Yeah.
God.
Well, so what happened, Chris was on the phone. And I was literally like, I'm running around like I'm on The Price is Right. Like, we turned off all the lights to make it look like we weren't there. And our bedroom was on the main floor. So I was lying on the floor with the door. It had 2 French doors slightly ajar just to see, because I could see lights and stuff. And I heard the car coming down the driveway. And that's on the 911 call. You hear Kristen going, he's here. And so I heard him go to the back door and put his key in and try a couple times. Didn't work. Then he comes to the front door. Same thing. It didn't work. And I was like, okay, good. He can't get in. He's going to go away. But no, Jace managed to pry a window open and he came in through the dining room window. And that's when I don't know what happened to me, but in a surge of like adrenaline, you hear this like commotion where I'm screaming at him. I think I said something like, I know everything. Jason Porter, you've been to prison for this and you're this and the. And he just looked at me and kind of shrugged. He was like, so? And he went and made himself a coffee from the coffee machine. Super duper huge.
He didn't even care.
We had one of those. Yeah, we had one of those huge super duper coffee machines like you see when you take your car in to get service. Like you can have a French latte or a this and that. Yeah. He went and made himself a coffee. And he just started staring at me. And then I'm like, Pop's going to be here any minute. And the cops come. a man and a woman. The man takes Jace outside. The woman keeps me inside. I'm hysterical. Like, I am in shock and hysterical. And when you read the police report from that night, they wrote, like, Heather was rude. She kept cutting us off. She wouldn't let us finish our sentences.
God.
Nobody recognized that Heather was in complete fear and shock. And so then next thing I know, the two cops are talking and the woman comes back in and she said, okay, we're just waiting for the sergeant. I'm like, great. He was here yesterday. He knows me. He knows the whole story. And they're like, no, Jace is claiming that the reason he hasn't been here is you assaulted him. I'm like, what? Like, he's lying. I never assaulted him. And they were really going to arrest me. Kristen's on the phone with my parents this whole time. They're getting a criminal lawyer on the phone on a Sunday night. And then the sergeant basically said, okay, well, Jace isn't going to press charges tonight, but he is reinstating his right as your co-tenant in this house. And I was like, but how? And I'm like, not to mention, I'm terrified. How can I live here and run my business if he's here? And the cop's like, I don't know, but if you don't feel safe, leave. How is that fair? I'm like, how do I know if I leave tomorrow, he's not going to pull a U-Haul up and rob me blind? There's $300,000 worth of inventory in this house from my business. And he's like, you can only take what's yours. All right, both of you. And so the cops leave us together in the house. And Jace goes into the office, which also had two French doors, and he takes an iPhone cord and wraps it around the door so I can't get in. And he proceeds to erase the computer. And I hadn't gotten all the screenshots off yet because I never thought in a million years like this would happen. So there goes like half of the evidence that I had collected. He's like, I'll be back tomorrow at 9. And he left. The cops made me give him one of the new keys. But the key I gave him was a bit of a dud. It didn't work. So he ended up like changing all the locks himself, which left me locked out of the house. Like, it was so fucked up. So before we left, Kristen, in her brilliancy, walked through the entire house and was making videos saying, like, this is Heather's, this is Heather's, this is the business, this belongs to Jace, this is Heather's, Heather's, Heather's. So I had like a video inventory of everything. Thank God I had that, because I didn't go back to the house for a week. After that, within that week, had been back and started taking shit to his new girlfriend's house. She had my Dyson, she had my Google speakers, she had a GoPro, she took stuff from my store to her, like cashmere throws and like blankets and pillows. And I was like, you can't do that. Even though she knew the truth of who he was, she decided to stay with him. And when I asked for my belongings back, she refused without a lawyer letter. So I had to engage my lawyer, write her a letter saying, give herself back or else, we'll take court action. Within a week of the police being at my house with that 911 call, the OPP did arrest Jace for my mom's stuff, but because at that point, they really didn't know the depth of it. He was released on his own reconnaissance and didn't have to post bail. And then he proceeded to go through the criminal justice system for over 3 years until he was finally pled guilty. And, now he's serving 2 years left, 1 day in Canadian jail. So what Jace did to me, which, what could you call it? Like, it's intimate partner abuse. It's intimate partner emotional abuse. It's rape by deception as far as I'm concerned, because I slept with Jace Peretti for 3 years, not Jason Porter. He did steal from me.
She did get her moment in court when she looked him right in the eyes and read her impact statement.
He wouldn't look at me, and he kept murmuring to his lawyer, saying, that's not true. That's not right. That's not right. To the point where they were able to have chunks of my victim impact statement redacted. I kept reading even when his lawyer was trying to cut me off. I just was like, well, I'm going to keep reading. So now he's in jail. He got 2 years less a day. But I'll tell you this, after going through the system for all that time, like with him delaying it and, manipulating it, and in my statement I wrote, like, he's gaslighting the system. He's not just making a mockery of me. He's making a mockery of all of you.
Yeah. In a full circle moment, Heather finally got her trip to Italy with the actual love of her life, a real man. They were actually in Italy together during Jace's sentencing.
And I was in Italy at the time, so I zoomed in to watch the sentencing. She gave him 2 years less a day and 3 years probation, and he has to pay my mom back restitution. And if he doesn't make the payments, it can trigger him going back to jail. He's been in now for just over a year. He still has 2 outstanding trials, one for Leslie's Cartier watch that's in the documentary. She mentions that. And then remember in the documentary when we're at court that day, and it's really cold because it's Canada, and they capture him walking into court and he puts his khaki blazer over his head and walked right by the camera. All of a sudden, like, everyone's leaving the courthouse. I'm like, what's going on?
His lawyers happened to be sick, so court was canceled, and Jace still had another card up his sleeve to play.
You know, when court came back 2 days later, Jace miraculously showed up with these flyers that were like pointing the finger at me for jury tampering. So that led to everything being adjourned indefinitely.
The flyer said Jace was guilty and asked for anyone with information to contact Heather.
So I had to go and give a statement. And I was like driving up to the OPP station. And I'm like, why do I feel like I've done something wrong? Like I was, again, like it takes me back to that triggering, traumatic place. And I was so upset. And so I'm meeting with the OPP detective, the same one all along. And he shows me the flyers and I kind of laugh. I'm like, oh my God, what a joke. I'm like, first of all, my phone number is wrong. It took them, I think, about a good month of investigating, but the breadcrumbs led back to Jace. And he was subsequently arrested for obstruction of justice, jury tampering, and something else.
Heather now has a message for other women who have been in her shoes.
Falling in love with a con man or a criminal, it can happen. You deserve more. The red flags are so subtle. If you have a friend like a Kristen, you know, like to the friends of the person like me, because now since the documentary came out, a lot of my friends have said like, yeah, we always, you know, there was always something about him.
Yeah, we knew, but we didn't want to say anything.
Exactly. So like to those people, like my friend who found him on Bumble that time during lockdown, like I wish we could have had more of a conversation around it. Like, because you have to understand that when people are in love and you're in an emotional abusive relationship, like your brain is not working correctly. And it takes just a lot of love and a lot of patience probably to get through to somebody who isn't open to hearing it. But don't give up on them and try your best to help and protect them. It makes me sad when I watch the documentary and my dad says like he feel like he let me down and then he had to go and die. And I, you know, like we were at peace with it. I've had a lot of strangers reach out to me, and one of the most touching letters I got was via LinkedIn by a dad, a man who said, you know, I was so touched by your documentary and your father, and that as a father of two daughters, one who's in a relationship with somebody who I find a little questionable, I have to say something to protect her. These guys they're con men. Con man is short for confidence man.
When Jace is released from prison, there will be a restraining order in place. And as of right now, he doesn't know where Heather lives. Heather has told her story a lot after the documentary, and I want to thank her for taking the time to share her story with me and you. I'll put the link to the documentary in the show notes. It's a good one. Until next time, Scammer Warriors.